So you bought a new home. Now what? Do you really need an inspection? Well, let's talk to the inspectors and find out.
This is Russ and Lydia Belcher of Home Appeal Inspections. They are one of my go-to inspectors, and Russ is going to tell us all about what's happening here.
How y'all doing? Hey, so a home inspection is a visual inspection of the home's systems. It's visual only, it's non-invasive. Some inspectors go above their SOP, like in our particular report. We may have 150 to 200 pictures, especially in a home like this that's being rehabbed. We use a software that's on our phone. So as we progress through the inspection, we're doing the report. The pictures are getting captioned, the narratives are getting wrote. So we upload that up to the cloud, we download it to our laptop, and we make some fine-tuned adjustments, and we generate the report. And then that way we can go over the report with the agent or with the client, and they can see everything that's going on. They can ask all their questions, and that's it. Head our own way, and then the report gets sent out that evening, always the same day. That way they get the ball rolling. These days and times, we'll need an inspection holding up the process. Our summary sheet, these items are listed in red at the top of the report. These are the things that's going to cost you some money, and they're important. It's a safety concern. It's a concern that's that might cost you some money, a year down the road, or it's a concern right now. Those are in the summary. But in the body of our report, it has those items plus general maintenance items plus the cosmetics things.
What kind of training do you have to do, or how do you become an inspector?
Well, what I did is I used there's various training, and they have to be approved training. I used a company called AHIP. And I went through the training. It took 6 to 8 months after I went through the training. And then I applied for my license, and I formed an LLC, which was my business. You do have to go to Huntsville and take a rather exhaustive test. It takes about close to 3 hours, and then you take an ethics test because you are pilfering around in people's houses. So
right.
You need to be honest. So after all that's done, you get your license, you form your LLC, and then after that, it's just ongoing training. It's like anything else. You're constantly reading, different forums and calling people, and always improving, always learning more about your job. What we do when we first get to a property is we'll do an initial walkthrough. We'll turn on all the lights, get a feel for what's going on. What I'm looking for is any kind of movement in the cladding, any kind of wood decay. I check the water pressure, check the framing around the windows, and then also give a visual examination of the HVAC system. We catch the age, we take pictures of that, anything out of the ordinary going on, and then I move up to the roof and walk the roof surface. If the slope is too much, I have different tools. I have ladders where I can get to the eaves. I have a drone where I can zoom in on different aspects of the roof with the drone. But preferably I like to walk it, where I can get in there and feel it and move things around and see what's happening.
One of the things I'm looking for is granule loss on the roof surface, and that tells me just a general idea of the age of the home. And I can tell by just even, sparse granule loss. This roofing material is probably around 5 years old. So when I put it in my report, general, other things I look for is loose shingles, missing shingles, and then I look at these plumbing penetrations. I want to make sure it has the proper flashing for the roof material type, and that the nail heads have been caulked, and it's protruding at least 6 inches, and the rubber boot is sealed. So there's various things to look at on the roof. And down in valleys, you want to make sure you can visually see some flashing around head wall flashings and rake wall flashings.
Yeah, so then I come back inside after I'm done with the roof, and I go up in the attic and I walk through the attic. And what I'm looking for is any kind of water intrusion through the plumbing penetrations, around the flashing, looking around the chimney flashing, make sure it's properly installed, not leaking. Also check for proper insulation applications and also the depth of insulation, and that it's evenly laid and it's in all the places it's supposed to be.
Yeah, while he's doing that, I start out in the kitchen. I run all the appliances and check under the kitchen sink and make sure there's no leaks or anything like that going on. I open and close all the cabinet doors because nobody likes it when your cabinet doors are loose and floppy when you're trying to use them.
All right, Lydia, so here we are in the kitchen. Now this is just to be clear, this is an investor that bought this house. It's in disarray, but it won't be when he's done with it. So anyway, this is not your average kitchen.
Correct. But in our initial walkthrough in any kitchen, we look for things that would be indications of floor structure issues or any major defects in the construction of the home. So this home, obviously, we can look and see here, we have decay at the base of the cabinet. We have a dip in the floor right here. And when we walk over here, we want to be super careful because it basically feels like the vinyl is the only thing holding the floor up right here. So if I see something like this after our initial walkthrough, then I always tell Russ about it because he's the one that goes in the crawl space and he's checking the floor structure. So this is usually indicative that there's going to be an issue with the floor joists in the crawl space, which is a major fix.
So after we got everything flowing, that's when I moved to the crawl space. And then I start at one end, just like we do an interior inspection. I go right, I stay right, and I go around the perimeter because I want to inspect all the seal plates. And I want to make sure the band joists, we don't have any water intrusion, we don't have any wood decay, and then they're properly seated. And then after I make my perimeter, then I start weaving in through the center. And I take pictures of the plumbing penetrations for the toilets and the sinks, because that's usually where your problems are. Make sure we don't have shower pans leaking, we don't have loose toilets with wood decay. So we capture the photos of all those. And we also describe what we see, what the structure is made out of, like a 2x10 joist, and we have 2-ply 2x12 beams that are resting on the pier, and it looks generally like it should be, it's installed properly.
So this is a typical electrical panel in an older home. When I first pull the panels, the first thing I want to look at is I want to see what kind of wire we got. I want to make sure we have copper wiring. There's some concerns if you have aluminum wiring. It's something you can research, but it's generally an outdated wire. It has some safety issues, so I always want to make sure I point that out. And then we're looking for just double tapping of circuit breakers, not all breakers. You can land 2 wires on the same terminal. There are some you can, so we want to let our client know about that. And then we want to look for any kind of just obvious overheating.
This home is 1964. So the other thing we take into consideration is I have a hairline diagonal header crack. That crack has been for 70 years. We've got only that little bit of movement, and then I can tell by looking at the frame that's kind of pulled a little bit. So for me, this isn't a concern. It wouldn't even make it into the summary because of the age of the home and what little bit of settlement, it's just not a concern. So when we do that initial walkthrough and I look at something like this, I just keep in my mind that when I'm in the crawl space, I don't see any major settlement underneath this support.
In this particular area.
So it's just not a concern.
This is something we would want to point out because it's something that you may not notice when you're doing your walkthrough and purchasing your home, especially if it's a competitive market and you don't get a lot of time to look at your prospective home. And you get moved in and you look at that and you think, well, is that a problem? But you can go back to your report and see that picture and say, oh, okay, it's a cosmetic header crack from typical settlement from a home this age.